Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be diving into one of the absolute darkest, but honestly most fascinating conspiracies in the entire history of English football. We're talking about a time when the fundamental integrity of the beautiful game was just completely shattered. And the crazy part? It wasn't orchestrated by some shadowy mob boss. It came from right inside the locker room itself.
So here's the central mystery we're unraveling today. How in the world did a single, former player manage to pull the strings on the biggest, most devastating betting scandal British football had ever seen? We're going to look at the sheer, massive scale of this 1964 match-fixing syndicate, how it somehow operated right in plain sight, and the devastating ripple effects that literally ruined careers and permanently altered the sport as we know it.
Meet Jimmy Gauld. He was a former Scottish youth international, played for clubs like Swindon Town, Plymouth Argyle, St Johnstone, and Mansfield Town. But his actual legacy? Well, it wasn't forged on the pitch. It was built entirely in the shadows. You see, Gauld found out that players at his former club, Mansfield Town, had actually been paid off by opposing Tranmere Rovers players to deliberately lose a game. And that revelation just planted a seed in his mind. He realized just how vulnerable these professional players were, and he systematically started interfering with Football League matches, dragging guys into this huge, sprawling betting syndicate.
Let's quickly trace the timeline here, because Gauld's crime spree escalated really fast. This absolutely wasn't just a one-off thing. In December 1962, he masterminded a massive fix involving Sheffield Wednesday, and on that exact same day, his syndicate rigged two other 4th Division matches. By April 1963, his operation set its sights on a match between Bradford Park Avenue and Bristol Rovers, which ended with 2 Bristol Rovers players taking bribes to throw the game. But, the walls had to start closing in eventually. By August 1963, Ken Thompson of Hartlepool United confessed to a Sunday tabloid that he'd actually bet with Gauld's syndicate for his own team to lose. And the whole thing finally exploded in a massive newspaper expose in April 1964.
Section 1. The Crown Jewel Target. The Fall of Sheffield Wednesday.
Okay, so let's break down the precise mechanics of how Gauld actually corrupted a top-flight fixture on December 1st, 1962. It's like a giant puzzle he put together. Gauld leveraged his personal network. He approached David Lane, a Sheffield Wednesday player who actually used to be a teammate of his back at Swindon. Lane then handpicked the target game, basically telling Gauld that Wednesday were probably going to lose to Ipswich Town anyway. To guarantee the result, Lane brings in his teammates, the defensive stars Peter Swan and Tony Kay. And get this, the 3 of them literally placed bets against their own side. The match went perfectly to plan for the syndicate. Ipswich Town won 2-0 thanks to 2 goals from Ray Crawford.
The sheer audacity of these players is just staggering. Listen to this. During that rigged Ipswich Town match, Tony Kay, who, remember, was actively conspiring to lose the game, played so well on defense that he was actually named man of the match. I mean, it adds this incredible layer of psychological complexity to the whole crime. He was throwing the game, but performing at such a high level that he completely hid the conspiracy from all the fans and the officials in the stadium. No one had a clue.
And to really give you a sense of the caliber of players Jimmy Gauld managed to corrupt, just look at this figure, £60,000. Literally just weeks after this fixed match, Tony Kay was transferred from Sheffield Wednesday to Everton for a British record fee of £60,000. The guy was a bona fide superstar. He'd go on to help Everton win the league title that season, even became an England international. So we aren't talking about struggling French players here. Gauld was bringing down the absolute elite of English football.
Decades later, the moral ambiguity of that day still deeply haunted the players involved. In a 2006 interview, Peter Swan admitted, "We lost the game fair and square, but I still don't know what I'd have done if we'd been winning. It would have been easy for me to give away a penalty or even score an own goal. Who knows?" It really shows you just how deep the mastermind's psychological web went. He left these guys questioning their own integrity long after the final whistle blew.
Section 2. The Sting and the Betrayal. Selling out the syndicate. So, by 1963, the press was circling, and our mastermind decided it was time to cash out. Now, Gauld had earned about £3,275 from his actual betting on the rigged matches, but he earned a staggering £7,420 by selling his confessions and totally selling out his co-conspirators to the Sunday People newspaper. Talk about cold-blooded, right? He literally made more than double the money destroying his own syndicate than he ever did running it.
And how exactly did he secure that massive payday? Through completely unprecedented means. Gauld went to the Sunday People looking for one final payoff, and he agreed to wear a wire. He secretly recorded conversations with his own co-conspirators, which specifically incriminated that Sheffield Wednesday trio, Lane, Swan, and Kay. When the trial kicked off at the Nottingham Assizes in 1965, the legal landscape in the country shifted forever. This was actually one of the very first times in history that taped conversational evidence was admitted in an English court. You really can't overstate the historical gravity of that moment. Gauld quite literally handed the prosecution the exact weapon they needed to destroy his peers.
The judge at the trial made it crystal clear who was really to blame here. In January 1965, he called Jimmy Gauld the central figure and slammed him with the heaviest sentence of the bunch, 4 years in prison. The rest of the guys received varying terms, dropping from 15 months all the way down to 4 months for the Sheffield Wednesday stars.
But you have to understand, the damage went way, way beyond just the men named in that courtroom. 33. That is the staggering total number of players who were ultimately prosecuted in connection with this match-fixing scandal. Goal syndicate had basically spread like a virus through the leagues. It created this massive, destructive ripple effect that ruined dozens of lives and careers.
The aftermath of all this was just incredibly somber. When they were released from prison, the Football Association came down hard, handing lifetime bans to the implicated players. The sheer tragedy of their choices is pretty tough to overstate. Think about Tony Kay, the record-breaking transfer star. He was fully expected to be playing on Alf Ramsey's 1966 England World Cup squad. Instead, his career was entirely over. These guys went from being local heroes to facing absolute personal ruin. Players like Dick Beattie ended up doing heavy labor in the shipyards, and Tony Kay eventually had to take a job working as a groundsman. Sure, a few of them eventually got their bans lifted years down the line, but the real damage, it was permanent.
So it leaves us with this final thought. When the mastermind of a conspiracy profits way more from betraying his peers to the tabloids than he does from the actual crime itself, the fundamental trust in the whole system is broken. It completely exposes an enduring vulnerability in professional sports. If the financial incentives to cheat, or honestly the incentives to expose the cheating, outweigh the love of the game, can the sport ever truly protect its integrity? It's a question that still echoes in stadiums today. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning the history behind the headlines.